Hello everyone, how are we doing? Well, I hope. It's been a while, I think, since I've done one of these videos, probably like 6 days, but it seems a lot longer. Big thanks to John and Stevie for stepping up while I was away. They did a live show on Sunday, and yes, we are suddenly at the end of the international break in terms of international football not been played anymore, but I always feel that the international break basically lasts all the way until we see Celtic back in action, and that is just now, like 3 days away. We face Motherwell at Celtic Park on Saturday. We're going to touch on that game on tomorrow's video. Today, as I ease myself back into proceedings, I thought we could take a wee look at what has happened with our international players over the last week while I've been away. Obviously, international football has dominated proceedings. Scotland have been great to watch. 3 games, 2 victories and a draw, leading us to top our Nations League group and go up in the divisions to the top tier of the competition and all the playoff stuff for Euro 2024 and rankings and all of that goes with it. It's been very good, and definitely several Celtic players also played a part over the last week. Callum McGregor was just brilliant for Scotland. Excellent last night. I mean, I think sometimes when you watch him playing for Scotland rather than Celtic, where obviously it's not quite as intense watching Scotland, even though I support them, I feel I can relax a little bit more. I feel you actually get to see how brilliant a player Callum McGregor is. At that level yesterday against a team like Ukraine, he strolled it in the middle of the park, and he's playing with, players alongside him who aren't as good as him, but I feel that he raises their levels as well. You can probably guess who I'm talking about there. Greg Taylor, magic as well. Really felt he grew into the Scotland shirt last night against Ukraine. Played a big role in the previous game against Ireland as well. And we can't forget about Anthony Ralston either. Didn't play as big a part as Taylor, or certainly not as McGregor, but when he came in and was called upon, he did well for Scotland. The 4th player that we had in the squad back at the start of the break was David Turnbull. He actually pulled out of the squad, or was withdrawn from the squad after the opening match of the 3. I believe he actually picked up an ankle knock for Celtic in our final game at St Mirren a week and a half ago. So question marks clearly whether he'll be fit to face his former club. And he's not the only one that there are question marks over in terms of Celtic's international players. If we just look at the players who were away on duty from the graphic that I did last week, Japan, Kyogo played 45 minutes for them. Maeda did the same. We'll come back to him in a wee second. Reo Hatate didn't feature at all for Japan. Their manager Moriyasu doesn't seem to like bringing new players, especially younger players, into the setup. It just seems like Hatate's getting a real raw deal right now. He is more than good enough to play for Japan. I know they're in a pretty good side with some very good players, but Reo Hatate is just exceptional as far as I'm concerned. He's already proven it in the Champions League with some of the stuff he's done, and I just think it's pretty flabbergasting that he doesn't get a game or even any minutes for Japan. But I guess that he's young enough to not let that bug him too much, and from a Celtic point of view, it's probably not a bad thing. I mentioned that we'd come back to Maeda. He actually went off with a knock in Japan's first match and didn't feature in the squad for yesterday's game against Ecuador, although he did watch the game in the stadium, which to me suggests that it maybe wasn't a horrendous injury, maybe more precautionary than anything. I think if it had been far more severe, he may have been back at Lennoxtown sooner than not. These matches were just in Europe as well, which is good news from a Celtic point of view. So Hatate didn't feature at all. Maeda and Kyogo both get 45 minutes. In terms of the other players, Juranovic and Moy both played 1 full match for their countries, Croatia and Australia, respectively. Sead Haksabanovic was involved in a bit of a feisty clash, it's fair to say, for Montenegro against Finland. Montenegro had 5 yellow cards, including 1 red card, in the first 19 minutes of that match. It was feisty, to say the least. Haksabanovic went off injured after 31 minutes following a heavy challenge. Elsewhere, Liel Abada helped Israel's under-21s qualify for their Euros in the summer. They are being held in Romania and Georgia. They beat the Republic of Ireland on penalty kicks. And Yorgos Yakimakis, a little bit concerning. He didn't feature at all for Greece in either of their matches. Their manager, Gus Poyet, reckoned he wouldn't play this weekend for Celtic, but that he should be back pretty soon after. He seemed to feel some sort of discomfort in his leg in training. And finally, Matt O'Reilly scored his first goal for Denmark's 21s in the 2-2 draw against Croatia. So just to summarise, questions to be answered by Postecoglou. Sorry, that sounded really controversial the way I worded that there. He will answer questions and offer some insight on Maida, Turnbull, Haksabanovic and Yakimakis, as well as Carter Vickers and Starfelt. So we've got a kind of growing injury list. That's the bad news, the kind of negative way of looking at it. The good news, I think, would be that none of them seem to be too long-term, too serious, really. Potentially a few of those players will miss the weekend. Maybe most of them will miss the weekend. But certainly for the big games coming up after that, hopefully starting with Leipzig on Wednesday, the likes of Yakimakis, Maida, Turnbull, hopefully Carter Vickers will be back as well. So none of them seem too serious, but obviously still frustrating to have another international break with plenty of injuries. I know I'm extremely biased, but it doesn't seem to happen to the same extent to other teams. It just seems like every single international break we have like at least 3 or 4 injuries coming back, which is frustrating. But we'll move on. The other bit of news yesterday, basically the main bit of news yesterday, was that the SPFL have announced a new deal with Sky Sports, extending their coverage of the Scottish Premiership till at least 2029. Now, I have made my feelings on this abundantly clear. Check that video above if you want to see me speaking, I think, for about 10 minutes about why this was a bad deal. But yeah, anyway, a lot of PR jargon, as you would expect. The number 60 being used a lot. We could show up to 60 games per season. Woo, 60. Amazing, when the reality is that Sky have shown 41 in each of the last 2 seasons. The chances of them going up to 60 are, I would say, very, very small. The minimum they have to show is 42, which is probably what they will. There I am ranting again, but I just find it all quite frustrating. Some places even mentioning the prospect of 80 matches, as if Sky are going to go from 41 games to 80. The good bit of news that was kind of new info yesterday is that the Scottish Women's Premier League is also going to be shown on Sky Sports from this season. A minimum of 5 games. They can be either in the SWPL or the SWPL League Cup, which is now going to be sponsored in name by Sky Sports. It will be shown on Sky, which is obviously good news for the exposure of the women's game. We have seen the wonders that, to be fair to them, Sky have done with women's football down south. The TV deal that they get for their top league is just brilliant. And if the SWPL could even take a little bit of that and grow in stature, then it can only be a good thing for women's football and for Celtic as a club as well. It does feel like women's football is just about to really explode if it hasn't already, and it would be great to see Celtic involved, or certainly at the front of that. Just going back to the men's stuff as I go on another rant, I did laugh at the line in the SPFL statement which read, Sky Sports customers can continue to enjoy the biggest matches from the SPFL live every week of the season until 2029. Let's just not worry about 2029. Let's just look at November 2022, where there's a full fixture card of Scottish Premiership action with not one game being shown by Sky, including our trip to Motherwell, by the way. So makes a bit of a mockery of that claim that they're showing the biggest matches every week. But anyway, we move on. As I say, just easing myself back in today. We will be building ahead to the Motherwell game from tomorrow. Just can't wait to get back into all of this. Motherwell on Saturday. Then we're into, Leipzig. We're into St Johnstone, Leipzig again. All of the big games are going to be coming up. We've got big plans for the channel. We're going to be doing videos abroad. Loads of different kind of content as well. So yeah, stick with us. We'll be back tomorrow, as I say. And actually, before I forget, give us a wee sub if you've not already done it. We are that close to getting to 33,000 subscribers. So if you could give us a sub, that'd be massively appreciated. I will speak to you tomorrow.